The plains did not forgive mistakes. They stretched wide and merciless, beneath a sky bleached pale by years, of sun and sorrow, where the wind carried dust like a warning, and every hoofbeat echoed with memory. The land was old, older than fences, older than ranches, older than the men who claimed to own it. Out here, survival wasn't a right. It was a debt paid daily in sweat, blood, and silence. Ethan Cole knew this land better than most. He rode alone, as he often did, his horse moving at a steady, patient pace across the open range. The saddle creaked softly beneath him. His coat was worn thin at the elbows, his hat sun-faded and bent from years of weather. A rifle rested across his back, not raised, not threatening, just present like a quiet promise. Ethan wasn't hunting. He wasn't tracking cattle or chasing trouble. Trouble had a way of finding him on its own. The ranch behind him lay miles away now, just a cluster of low buildings clinging stubbornly to the earth. Ahead, the plains rolled endlessly, broken only by dry arroyos and scattered mesquite. The wind picked up, tugging at his coat, carrying with it something that made his horse slow. The horse snorted. Ethan felt it too. Smoke. Not the friendly kind from a cook fire. This was sharp, bitter, burned wrong. He shifted in the saddle, eyes narrowing as he scanned the horizon. That's when he heard it, faint, almost lost in the wind. A cry. Not a coyote, not a bird. Human. Ethan turned his horse toward the sound, every instinct warning him to turn back. Men who chase cries on the frontier often didn't come back. And if they did, they weren't the same. The cry came again, ragged, desperate. Female. As he crested a low rise, the scene unfolded below him like a wound ripped open. 3 riders circled a figure on the ground. White men, hard men. Their laughter carried on the wind, ugly and sharp. One dismounted and kicked at the woman, sending her sprawling in the dust. She tried to crawl, but her strength was gone. An Apache woman. Her dark hair was matted with blood and dirt. Her dress was torn. Her wrists were bound with rope already soaked red. One of the men held a torch, the flame flickering wildly as if even fire knew it didn't belong there. Ethan's breath went cold. He knew these men, or at least the kind. Riders who called themselves bounty hunters. Men who believed Apache lives were worth less than the coins they were paid. Men who would swear to God they were doing the territory a favor. The woman looked up then. Her eyes met Ethan's across the distance. There was fear there, but also something else. Defiance. She didn't beg. She didn't scream again. She just looked at him, as if asking a question the wind itself refused to answer. Will you ride on, or will you stop? Ethan had buried men for less. He had seen ranch hands gutted over misunderstandings. He had lost friends to Apache. Raids and Apache children to white men's bullets. The frontier did not offer clean choices, only consequences. One man raised the torch higher. That's enough, Ethan said, his voice carrying before his mind could stop it. All 3 riders turned. For a moment no one moved. Then one of them laughed. Look at this, the man said. A lone cowboy with a hero's heart. Ethan slid from his saddle slowly, hands visible. He didn't reach for his gun, not yet. She's mine, the torch holder said. Territory bounty. Apache price is posted clear as day. She's wounded, Ethan replied. She won't make it 10 miles. That ain't my problem. The woman sagged, her strength nearly gone. Dust clung to her skin like a shroud. Ethan exhaled. He saw his options clearly now. Ride away and live with it. Or step forward and let the plains decide the rest. His hand moved. The gunshot cracked across the open land like thunder. One rider fell before his laughter finished leaving his mouth. The second reached for his weapon and never cleared leather. The third turned his horse to flee, but Ethan was already moving. The horse screamed as it went down, throwing its rider hard into the dirt. Silence followed. Only wind, only dust. Ethan stood over the last man, gun steady. Go, Ethan said, and tell anyone who asks you never saw her. The man didn't argue. He ran. Ethan turned to the woman. Up close, her injuries were worse than he'd thought. Bruised ribs. A gash along her temple, her breathing shallow, uneven. But when he cut the ropes from her wrists, she didn't flinch. She watched him carefully. You should leave me, she said, her English broken but clear. Not today, Ethan replied. He helped her onto his horse, careful, gentle. She was light, too light. Hunger had already taken its toll. As they rode, Ethan felt the weight of what he'd done settle over him like a coming storm. Apache did not forget debts. Neither did men like the ones he'd killed. Behind them, the plains swallowed the blood, the bodies, the truth. Ahead of them waited something far more dangerous than gunfire. Consequences! And somewhere beyond the horizon, an Apache tribe was already beginning to notice that one of their own had not died when she was meant to. The plains had a way of keeping secrets, but the Apache were patient. They watched. They waited. And when one of their own survived what should have been death, the world itself seemed to hush until justice was served. Ethan rode slowly, the woman beside him, her eyes shadowed by both fear and something deeper, a recognition that her life had changed and that his had too. She spoke little, only whispers now and then. Her English was broken, clipped, but enough to convey her meaning. "My name, Naya," she said finally, voice trembling. They will come." "I know," Ethan replied, his gaze scanning the rolling plains ahead. The sun was low now,
turning the dust into a haze of copper and gold. Every hill, every tree line could hide an ambush. Every shadow could carry a rider with a gun or a spear. They rode in silence until night fell, blanketing the land in gray. Stars began to prick the sky, and Ethan made a small camp in a shallow canyon, careful to choose a spot where no one could see them from the ridges above. The fire he built was modest, barely more than a glow against the dark. Naya sat on the ground, her knees pulled close, staring into the flames. Ethan cleaned his gun methodically, as though the act alone could stave off the dangers waiting in the darkness. "You saved me," she said after a long moment. "Not for reward, not for gold." Ethan didn't answer immediately. He only nodded, letting the fire crackle fill the silence. "Why?" she asked again, softer this time. "Why risk your life?" He finally looked at her. Eyes hardened by years on the frontier, but softened by something in her gaze. "Because some things you just can't walk away from," he said. She considered that, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. And then the wind shifted. The smell hit them first. Smoke, yes, but mixed with sage and a strange, metallic temps. Then the sound, the low, resonant beat of drums. Faint, but growing closer, like the heartbeat of the land itself. "They are near," Naya said, rising unsteadily. "My people, they come." Ethan felt the weight of every choice he had ever made pressing against him. Turning back now was not an option. Running was not enough. And yet, the Apache tribe that approached was a force of nature, disciplined, swift, and merciless, if angered. When the riders emerged from the darkness, Ethan saw them clearly for the first time. Warriors mounted on sturdy horses, faces painted, eyes sharp, hands ready. They circled slowly, studying him as one might study a predator trapped in an unfamiliar corner. Naya whispered something, and they listened, lowering their weapons slightly but not entirely. The chief dismounted, tall and imposing, a shadow against the firelight. His eyes locked onto Ethan's with a gaze that could carve bone. "She is ours," the chief said, voice deep, commanding. "You have saved her, but the debt is not forgotten. You ride into our land and ask for nothing in return. That is not how balance works." Ethan felt the truth of it in his bones. Out here, debts were measured in more than gold, or promises they were measured in blood, trust, and honor. "I saved her from death," Ethan said evenly. "I did what I could." The chief studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then you will ride with us," he said. "And you will prove your worth. Not to me, not to your people, but to hers." Ethan knew this was no simple escort. No safe journey. He had been drawn into something far larger than he imagined. And yet, when he glanced at Naya, the faintest spark
of gratitude and something softer, something dangerous, glimmered in her eyes. The night was still alive with whispers of wind, rustling dust and the soft, steady breathing of horses. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. He had no idea what awaited them on the trail ahead. Ambushes, betrayal, or the lessons of a culture that measured every action, every word, every choice. The fire's glow flickered and dimmed as the warriors mounted and moved out, with Ethan and Naya trailing cautiously behind. Every step brought them deeper into the plains and deeper into a story where the frontier did not forgive mistakes, and where love, loyalty, and life itself could hang by the thread of a single choice. Somewhere in the darkness, Ethan heard a voice he didn't recognize, a whisper carried on the wind. "Not all debts are paid in blood, cowboy, but some will demand more than you can imagine." The campfires of the tribe's scouts disappeared behind a rise. Ahead, the trail opened to the unknown, and Ethan felt the full weight of the journey pressing down. He was no longer just a man on the plains. He was a protector, a trespasser, and perhaps a pawn in a game older than the land itself. And the connection with Naya, fragile as it was, stirred in him a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Danger, honor, desire, all tangled together as the night deepened.